Alright, so we're back again with another video, and this one, I made this one a long time ago, about a year ago or so, and so it's like how to make video games better. So I figure I'd kind of like expand upon it, even though probably we'll cover the same points again, but just kind of like a little bit better though. So anyways, when understanding how to make a video game, you should always put like perfection in the state of mind that you can. I know some people always say that power and specs are fun is better, and it's kind of like when I try to explain it to like the Nintendo fans, for example, where they say that gameplay is what matters, but like when you try to convince to them that and then this is when they usually counter and they say that oh, you're just a Sony fanboy because that's all you care about are graphics and power. But here's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't understand. Okay, yes, gameplay is the most important thing in a video game, and then story and music, and then graphics, and then and then make sure it's the controls are really steady. But you have to understand this, people. If your specs are probably, they are part of the gameplay mechanic. You think of it like this: when you're running a video game, you're running software. That's what it is. But when you're running like hardware, you're depending on the hardware or console or custom tower, whatever you're playing your games on. That's why I always go with emulators, because I buy my games, but the custom towers, at least the custom tower I'll be getting, at least in the most part, they're more powerful than consoles, and there's some pretty powerful consoles out there, But what I'm saying though is, if you're going to be like if you want like something that's like top of the line, like really good, runs like really high frame rate, the quality's just solid, and you can hook it up to like a true 4K HD TV, or even over in Asia they already got like 16K and shit like that. It's fucking crazy, it really is. But or better yet, they also have like these little micro TVs, like they're like a credit card thin, and then you can but they're like a 32-inch, and you just slap it on your wall, and it's so fucking cool, like all these holograms and shit like that people have been able to come up with. But what I'm saying is this, though, going back to the video game idea, you have to understand specs are very important, because without specs you are going to get what is known as lag, and you're going to have a lot of frame rate drops. And in this day and age, we don't need this. We have the technology, especially if there's people out there that are going to spend okay, maybe graphics don't always have to be like the greatest graphics of all time. Again, like I play different Japanese games, and I like different varieties. I like cartoonish graphics. It kind of looks cool, and I like anime and animation graphics. Even though some people will say cartoon and animation is like the same thing, but again, that's just me. I like wide varieties, because that way life is more interesting than there's just one. If everybody was that decision, think of it like this: it'd be like that episode of The Fairly Odd Parents. You remember that episode where Timmy wished that everybody was the same because he was sick of everybody being better than him? And then after everybody was, they all looked like they were in that distorted white and gray world where like everybody looked like Blue from Foster's Home from Imaginary Friends. If anybody remembers that show, but But the point was, everybody looked the same, and nobody really looked different. They tried to put themselves out there being different, but everybody eventually came to the realization that everybody just is different, and it's better off being that way. So it's kind of like it's better to be different and have wider varieties than it is to just settle on one thing and then that's it. But what I'm saying though is, as far as what Nintendo comes up with, yes, I get that. I like the fact that they're trying to do things differently. I do like that. But at the same time though, the gimmicks and the fact that their consoles are underpowered, it's not in their best interest then, because they have competition. And I know some people keep saying that it doesn't matter, but it does though. Because it does affect their libraries, it does affect their gameplay, it does affect, it affects the decisions that they make. Nintendo wants, especially if they're going to charge you $300 for a console or a bundle, and mind you, at this point, like the full exclusive version, not just the console exclusions, it's going to cost you more money with the Switch than it is going to cost you with the Sony and the PS4 and Microsoft's. My point is, all these games that Nintendo puts on their consoles, for example, going back to the whole history of it, essentially they already have these games on other plateaus, and So this is why people often criticize Nintendo. This is the biggest complaint people have, because especially if you're going to drop a lot of money, and again, like I said, I have a job, I make good money what I do, but yeah, a lot of people have to understand though that Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft and all these other companies, like, I mean, depending on how powerful they make these consoles or towers, if they decided to get into that business, hardware is more important over the software, because if you have software that's better than the hardware, there's a problem there then. That means that piece of software is going to struggle to run on that piece of hardware. You need something even more powerful than that. So hardware is really part of the gameplay mechanic, or at least on an important scale. Specs are important. But other than that, let's talk about another thing. Let's kind of get back into this. But graphics would be another thing. I know that people often say that graphics aren't the best thing ever. Sure, but if you want a good game though, like a really good game, something that you can see clear as day, that's still good. Me personally, I mean, when I go on YouTube, I could record 4K, not 4K, but 480p, and it's still good. Like, I mean, I could look at some of those videos, and I mean, yeah, obviously you don't want not to get confused with native and upscale, but native means like you're recording it in its solid state, and upscale means you're taking you're just stretching it out, and essentially that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like that. It shouldn't be like that. So that's the problem. And the thing with Nintendo that I've noticed is that and this is the thing that confuses me. I mean, can their console really truly be 720p if it's downscaled? Like, I mean, I know that the screen ratio is still really small, but I mean, you could always hook it up to a TV too, so there's that. But I mean, but when you have it in portable mode though, I mean, can it really truly be 720 or whatever it was? Because I mean, I'm confused. Like, I mean, if the dimension ratio is still the same, but it's like on that small tablet, I mean, I just don't understand how could it still be 720p though? That's what always confused me. Not to get confused with dock mode, which some people say it's 1080, but some people have said it's still 720. But I don't know. I haven't looked that up. But I wouldn't doubt it in some cases because Nintendo's kind of out there. But anyways. But gameplay-wise, like, you want to make your controls really good. You want to make your gameplay really good. You want to make really long games. You want to essentially make games that are really long, really, like, to the point where I know some people often complain like the length of a game is usually a big deal because some people like go out and spend $60, and I mean, and here's another thing that's really cool. If you're going to release like DLC and patches later on, release it as free. You don't release it like to piss people off. I mean that's how I would do it. I mean, if I had to include patches and DLC, if I missed something in the game, it'd be free. It should be free. It shouldn't be something that's obviously in the game. Like take like GameStop for example. Like every time they say the Destiny 2, like what was the gimmick with the commercial? They said pre-order Destiny 2 to keep track of your kills. The bot that followed you around and kept track of your kills. That was probably originally in the game itself, but they scrapped it, and then they now you got to go fucking GameStop and get it. And then you put money down for your pre-order, and it's a good chance they could still cancel it, and then they still get your money either way, which sucks. It's stupid how GameStop finds these loopholes. It really is, and they create them too. But so do all these publishers too. Sort of. But I mostly blame GameStop for that. And then anyways, but to make games better though, you want to give like customizations, huge variety. The F-Zero series is a great example. Like take like a racing game for example. You have like all these different courses. You have a course builder. You have all these different characters you can play as. You got all these different vehicles you can play as too. Even though that each pilot is essentially like whatever ship they belong to, so it's not like you can really change that. But you can also, but if you have like certain versions of like F-Zero, you can actually change like you can make like custom classes. You can make or you can make your own ships essentially. Like you can change the colors. You can change like the stats on them. That's what I meant by you can change your own vehicles. I mean, it's crazy. It's awesome. It really is. And it's just amazing because some people don't really realize that. But anyways, you know, that's awesome. That really is. Another thing that's really cool is that you could make, what else could you do? Like, you could give like multiple endings, you could give multiple difficulties, tutorials, missions, challenges, like essentially just all this, you know, these infinite possibilities. I mean, you got to program it into the game, though. You know what I mean? The more work you essentially put into something, the better it's going to be. Is essentially my logic of that. I'm getting at here. And the same thing with Nintendo. You know, if Nintendo would make more games, then more people would buy their console. It would keep their consoles alive. The more powerful they make their consoles, the capabilities could stretch even further. And that's the same thing with these publishers and companies, and you know, it's really not that hard, actually, if you think about it. But another thing that people could do to make games even better is if they, well, what was that, another way, or different endings, different game overs could also be interesting. Different plot twists and stories. What the hell was that? Yeah, as I'm recording this, I'm hearing loud noises apparently outside. That actually scared me. Yeah, hold on a second. I'm gonna go investigate this, or maybe I'll keep an eye on it. I'm just gonna keep recording. Oh boy, what the hell was that? Okay, anyways. Okay, so as far as Nintendo goes, this is some of the things that Nintendo used to do a lot of in the past, like the retro games and all that. They have a lot of games. I mean, even though Sony has more, but you have to understand, though. You know, when you look at like what these consoles are capable of doing, push the limits. You know, frame rate is important. Make sure it doesn't drop. Doesn't lock either. If you know how that works. Make sure the graphics can run really good too. It'd be nice. I've actually seen certain programs where, like, you know, they'd run something at a certain setting and then it would automatically like change the quality depending on like the plugins, the drivers. It's pretty cool. Like certain emulators can do that. You can change like the line in models and all that, like kind of like a debug, kind of hack the game sort of. But you know, or if you remember like the original Sonic games, that was a good example of like being able to access the debug mode and really kind of dig into the game's coding and see what you can do. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But also, what was also really interesting was, you know, like certain games require like certain events. But I think it's also really cool because like certain games that require, what is it? Like a trophy system. A trophy system would be another really good example. You could also include like achievements. Retro achievements is another really good example of this. Let's see what else. Online playing is really popular with people nowadays. Different game modes, different you know, team co-op would be nice. Maybe like a huge long story of like who the characters are, aside from story, graphics. And I'm just trying to think. I think that's it. All the things I wanted to say, really. Except there was one more thing I wanted to bring up before we end this video. Essentially, you know, like I said before, the more projects you put into a project, the more potential people are going to have to want to keep playing it. But what I'm saying is, certain games that have like all this customization, so many different things you can learn, Easter eggs, secrets, a Portal series is and I think Valve's Half-Life series actually does it too. Although I think Portal is actually the one that has more Easter eggs because there's probably so many secrets that so many people still haven't discovered in those games yet. But anyways, the oh, what else was that? Something to do. So you have the achievements, gameplay. Like, okay, so how about this? How about different customizations and like options, unlockables, the original artwork in some games, the original soundtrack, you know, limited editions. You know, I mean, if you're going to sell a product, and I mean, obviously, the more you put into it, the more money you're looking at. But if you're going to spend money, give the consumer the advantage. You know, make them want to buy your product. Keep giving them what they want. Don't piss your fans off, but just make a game, make a series, keep it going. Now, maybe there might be some times where you might not want to do this, sure, but then make another series, you know? Because if you do that and release it in multiple different languages somehow and program it just right, people will talk about these games worldwide. Advertisement could also be another thing, because again, you might not know how many copies your game is going to sell at first, but depending on what you do, might very well depend on the final outcome. And I truly believe that anybody can control any market, even demand. Because you hear, like, if you go on YouTube and listen to all these people complaining about like how these companies like try to control and monopolize like all these things like for all the wrong reasons, well then they can do it for all the right reasons too, which I truly do believe. So you just do the opposite of that and still succeed. Even further succeed. So I believe Nintendo can still change if they decided to, but the problem is though, only if they're willing to though. So that would actually be a really good thing if they did that, instead of just overcharging people and still finding a way to meet their high stocks. There we go. Okay, so Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, all these other companies out there right now. We just need people to keep making more games. And we'll go from there. But to make a better game depends on length, graphics, sound quality, controls, gameplay, difficulty, customization, fun factor, probably the most important one too. Length, if I haven't said that yet. Sequels, prequels, just trying to name some ideas. Unlockables, price, online type of game it is, genre. There was another one. Yeah, there's that sound again. Yeah, it's really kind of scaring me now. What the hell was that? Yeah. Well, anyways. And not just fun factor, but how many people can you sell it to? Potential, the sales, the repetition, the final result, the satisfaction, that. So hopefully this helped you guys out if you're going to make video games. Again, like I said, have goals, be organized, and put a lot of time and effort into your games. Kind of balance it out. Because, not like just mixed difficulty, but just kind of make sure that what you guys come up with is possible to be, and it's not just luck-based, it's skill. I don't mind like certain things that are luck-based as long as it makes sense, but not like something that's just, there's no control over it and it's no use, something like that. So comment, rate, subscribe, favorite, share this video. Hopefully this helps you guys out. And hope you guys enjoy it. So yeah, good luck.